At least 20 people were killed in Israeli strikes on Gaza's refugee camps on Wednesday. The bodies of the people, which included 5 women and 2 children, were brought to the Al-Aqsa hospital. Israel struck the Nusayrat and Al-Burej refugee camps. As per Gaza's Hamas-controlled health ministry, the death toll has exceeded 30,000. In Israeli aggression since the start of the war on October 7th, that is. Now, Israel launched its offensive after Hamas militant attacked its territories, killing over 1,200 Israelis and taking about 250 as hostages. Meanwhile, the United States, Egypt and Qatar have continued their efforts to broker a truce deal between the two sides. As per Syrian authorities, Israeli strikes targeted areas near Damascus on Wednesday. This is one of the many reported strikes amid the escalating Israel-Hamas war. The strikes were rained on Hezbollah targets in 2 locations in the capital. Now, since the beginning of the Syrian civil war in 2011, Israel has struck multiple targets in the country. Separately, Israel has said that it will, quote-unquote, not allow Iran to expand its presence in Syria. As tensions continue to escalate on the Lebanon-Israel border, the Israeli military claims to have struck Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon on Wednesday. Tel Aviv's military warplanes attacked a Hezbollah weapons depot, including other structures. The strikes came after Hezbollah ally Hamas militants claimed firing 2 missiles into northern Israel from South Lebanon. The United States has urged Israel to let Muslims worship at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Israeli capital of Jerusalem during Ramadan. Now, this comes after Israel's national security minister proposed barring Palestinians from praying there. Now, pertaining to the matter, U.S. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller said that it is in the best interest of Israel to allow worshippers their religious freedom. Israel has been assessing how to address worship in Jerusalem during Ramadan, the Islamic holy month that will start in March. Meanwhile, the US continues to press for a temporary truce deal between Israel and Hamas. The truce will require to halt strikes on Gaza and will also aid the homecoming of the remaining Israeli hostages. As scrutiny mounts over the US President Joe Biden's age, his doctor has said that the leader is fit for office with no health worries. The 81-year-old leader went through a medical checkup ahead of the general elections, where his old age has become a key issue among voters and rivals. The annual examination report by the Walter Reed Military Medical Center also comes after a special counsel report that described Biden's memory as hazy, fuzzy and poor. According to the White House doctor Kevin O'Connor, the only new issue this year is Biden's use of a machine to reduce sleep disruption and an emergency dental procedure. The report also ruled out the possibility of any neurological problem like Parkinson's. French citizens will soon have access to abortion as a constitutional right. The French Senate has voted overwhelmingly to enshrine the right to abortion in the constitution. And the European nation is now just one step away from the historic feat. Before the constitutional amendment becomes official, it must receive approval by 3/5 of all lawmakers in a special meeting called a Congress. The meeting is planned for Monday and is considered by many to be a rubber stamp, since both houses have already backed the bill. The Senate adopted the bill on a vote of 267 in favor and 50 against. The vote came after the lower house, the National Assembly, overwhelmingly approved the proposal in January. Remember, abortion has been legal in France since the 1970s, but pressure had grown to further cement it in the law. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urged backing from Balkan leaders against the country's war with Russia. This came during the leaders' two-day visit to the Balkans for the Albania summit. The leader also emphasized on the lack of ammunition at the Ukrainian fronts during the meeting. He also promoted the idea of joint arms production at the meeting at the Albanian capital of Tirana. Notably, Albania, North Macedonia and Montenegro are NATO members and have joined Western sanctions against Russia. Now the summit comes at a time of faltering US support as the aid package for Kyiv remains stuck over the country's domestic politics. A helicopter carrying 6 people crash-landed in the ocean off the coast of Western Norway on Wednesday. As per the country's Joint Rescue Coordination Center, all the passengers have been rescued. As per the region's largest medical service, Haukeland University Hospital, the medical condition of the survivors remains unclear at the moment. The helicopter was on a search and rescue training mission at the time of the accident, and the reason behind the crash is under investigation. As doctors continue their strike in South Korea, the country will now send its military and community doctors to hospitals within the next few days as part of emergency measures. Now, this is to support the healthcare system after a mass walkout by trainee doctors. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo has ordered the young doctors to return to work by today. On refusal of orders, the government has warned of legal action, including prosecution and the suspension of licenses. In India's state of West Bengal, ruling Trinamool Congress party leader Sheikh Shah Jahan has been arrested by the police. The Sandesh Kali leader is accused of sexual atrocities, land grabbing and money laundering. Shah Jahan will now be presented before a local court today. This comes after Shah Jahan evaded arrest after several women in the area came out alleging sexual harassment by the local strongman and his aides. Earlier, 2 of his aides were arrested this month, but the state government was seen dragging its feet over the case. French Army Chief General Pierre Schell witnessed the grand demonstration of India's indigenous Pinaka multi-barrel rocket launcher. Now the power display was unfurled by the Indian Army at the Pokhran Field firing range in the state of Rajasthan. The multi-barrel rocket launcher boasts a maximum range of 40 kilometers for the Mark I version and 60 kilometers for the enhanced Mark I version. It has the capability to fire a salvo of 12 rockets in just 44 seconds. India recently supplied the Pinaka system to Armenia. In fact, Nigeria and Indonesia have also expressed interest in acquiring the system. At least 14 people have been killed and over 20 others have been injured in a vehicle crash in India's Madhya Pradesh. As per authorities, the crash happened after a pickup vehicle which was packed with passengers lost control and overturned in the Dindori district. District Collector Vikas Mishra has revealed that the injured are undergoing treatment at the Shahpura Community Health Centre. Meanwhile, in the U.S. state of Idaho, delayed the execution of serial killer Thomas Eugene Creech. This comes after a medical team failed to find a vein to establish an intravenous for giving the lethal injection. Now, Creech is one of the longest-serving death row inmates in the U.S. The 74-year-old killer was imprisoned in 1974. He has been convicted of 5 murders in 3 states and is suspected of having committed several more. During his ongoing sentence, Creech beat another 22-year-old inmate, David Dale Jensen, to death in 1981. Of all the murders, this was the one for which Creech was to be executed. Massive wildfire in Texas has forced widespread evacuation and has triggered power outages. Firefighters on Wednesday continued the struggle to contain the flames. The Smokehouse Creek fire, which is now the largest among multiple wildfires in northern Texas, has rapidly expanded since it started on Monday. Several evacuees have lost all their assets, including their homes, to the blaze. As per authorities, the wildfire has burnt at least 500,000 acres by now. Now, this is the second largest fire in Texas history by area. Firefighters in northern Italy said they were responding to hundreds of calls after a heavy downpour caused flooding in the Veneto region on Wednesday. The fire and rescue services released videos showing one of many operations in the affected province. It shows crews airlifting some people from flooded farmland to safety, while others were rescued by small boats. Earlier on Monday, Italy's Civil Protection Authority had raised the alert level for possible extreme weather events over forecasters' warnings of exceptional rainfall throughout the week. While the world is still experimenting with text-to-video AI models like Sora, China has already aired its first AI-generated cartoon series called Xianqi. Xishong, the 26-episode cartoon series, is made using AI technology of Shanghai Artificial Intelligence Laboratory that is similar to OpenAI's Sora. Now, according to the AI laboratory, generative AI was used in every stage of the cartoon series production process, right from the art design to video generation and post-production. The series, broadcast by the China Media Group, showcases some of the most fabled classical Chinese poetry and their backstories. US President Joe Biden is signing an executive order to protect the personal data of Americans from foreign adversaries like China and Russia. This includes data such as biometrics, health records, geolocation. Biden's move targets commercial data brokers, the sometimes shadowy companies that traffic in personal data. Officials say these companies may sell information to foreign adversaries or US entities controlled by those countries. The senior administration officials have listed China, Russia, South Korea, Iran, Cuba and Venezuela as potential countries of concern. The Justice Department also plans to work with Homeland Security officials to build safety standards to prevent foreign adversaries from collecting data. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has launched India's first indigenously built hydrogen-powered ferry. It is said to have zero emission and zero noise. This in turn can also reduce the impact of global warming. According to Cochin Shipyard, which constructed the fuel cell ferry, the adoption of green hydrogen as a maritime fuel is at the forefront of India's commitment to a sustainable future. India has promised to cut its emission to net zero by 2070. Oil prices fell as US crude stockpiles surged, signaling sluggish demand. Brent crude dropped 0.3%, while US WTI crude fell 0.4%. The Energy Information Administration reported a fifth consecutive weekly increase in crude inventories, up by 4.2 million barrels to 447.2 million barrels, surpassing expectations. Concerns over a slow economy and reduced oil demand in the US mounted. Additionally, expectations for delayed US rate cuts heightened market anxiety, dampening sentiment. Traders adjusted forecasts for rate cuts following robust economic data, pushing the anticipated easing cycle to June. Amidst these factors, tensions in West Asia provide support, keeping a floor under oil prices. Market participants await the US Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index for further insights. Chinese Premier Li Qiang emphasized the importance of strengthening economic and trade ties with the United States. These remarks came during a meeting with a visiting US delegation led by Chamber of Commerce Chief Suzanne Clark. Li stated that cooperation benefits both nations, urging against decoupling efforts. He welcomed continued US investment in China, highlighting mutual interests. The visit signals a thaw in relations between the two countries, strained by disputes over Taiwan, the South China Sea, and the trade policies. The delegation's presence marks a step towards rebuilding engagement, following tensions heightened by the US downing of an alleged Chinese spy balloon a year prior. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.